My beloved, do you think it's an accident that you're hearing my voice right now? No. Heaven planned this moment long before you took your first breath. Here on Holy Voices, we share the whispers of eternity, the messages that change hearts and awaken destinies. If your soul is ready, stay with me, because what you're about to hear might be the very word your spirit has been waiting for. Your $100 gift through Super Thanks is not just support, it's prophecy. You are speaking into your own future harvest. They assembled a whole room of people and explained their well-thought-out scheme to make you look foolish. Your entire understanding of heavenly protection will be completely upended by what transpired next. According to psychological research, when narcissistic people see that someone's genuine authority threatens them, they will plan complex collective plots. However, the spiritual conflict taking place in realms beyond our understanding is too great for science to quantify. What they thought would bring you down has turned into the driving force behind your greatest victory, unveiling a secret that will leave you speechless with the realization of your own invincibility. As this individual comes toward you with phony casual attitude, let me tell you about the mask that is currently being worn. Manufactured indifference that causes every strand of your being to scream warnings as they approach you, discussing previous events being past events, wanting your assistance, and the past being the past but selected one. Your soul is more knowledgeable. You can sense the agenda leaking from words like poison dressed as honey, and your intuition is acting as a warning mechanism. This is what's actually being said. As I've been drowning in the fallout from my own toxic decisions, I've been watching you rise. And in order to carry out the strategy I've been honing in the dark, I need you to let your guard down once more. Reconciliation is not what this is. It's reconnaissance. Analyzing your defenses, figuring out your weaknesses, and arranging a strike to cause the most destruction. You've changed since you left that terrible environment. You've been elevated to heights they'll never be able to attain, shielded by forces they can't understand, and forged in fires they can't even imagine. Someone attempting to fix what cannot be fixed is the subject of the music that plays continuously in the cosmic background of this entire drama. Someone attempting to mend what cannot be mended while bleeding dry. But you're not trying to fix anyone here. This is about the cosmos revealing your wholeness via brokenness, revealing your calm through chaos, and announcing your ascension through a fall. This person used to be a part of your life, growing on you like a parasitic spiritual being. It spreads like mold in the dampest, darkest places of life, not like love. Every day was just another day that your light was gradually going out. Dreams slowly faded. Energy steadily depleted until you were unable to recall what it was like to be completely lively and vibrant. This individual was a skilled practitioner of covert sabotage. Surgical skepticism, an energy vampire of the highest order, would be the perfect response when you shared your visions, goals, and dreams of something greater. It would be perfectly calibrated doubt rather than outright opposition because that would have been too obvious. It would feed off your enthusiasm while providing you with nothing but spiritual malnutrition. The cosmos was already laying the groundwork for your demise, even when the toxicity felt overpowering, when you started to doubt your own senses, and when you were told you were going insane. The cosmic ledger was being updated with each instance of manipulation. Your energy was being stolen, and each drop was being measured for repayment with interest. Every fading fantasy was preparing for a return so bright that its light would blind. The normalization of poison was the most pernicious aspect of the operation. You were certain that you were being overly sensitive when you felt exhausted after spending time with them. They were so good at making you doubt your own intuition that you nearly forgot what healthy energy exchange felt like, and they gaslight you into thinking you were being unreasonable when you sensed a total absence of support for your growth. Persistent gut instinct that things wasn't quite right. Even when everything was being done to have you go in circles, that was your inner compass pointing in the direction of true north. Being uncomfortable wasn't a sign of weakness. It was sagacity. It wasn't your fault that you were exhausted after every encounter. It was proof that spiritual battle was being fought against your soul. It wasn't merely a decision you made when you eventually left. You were able to avoid a trap that was ready to close on your entire destiny thanks to supernatural intervention. It was not a coincidence. It was accurate in a cosmic sense. Just as a mask was ready to come off entirely and expose the monster behind, you departed at precisely the perfect time. This is when things take a turn that will truly wow you with what it means. This individual wasn't merely privately bitter about you leaving a horrible environment. Didn't merely dwell in seclusion, nursing wounds, and hatching schemes while harboring resentment. No, the one that was selected. The nuclear option was selected. Others were actively enlisted in a destructive campaign. In a meticulously constructed victim narrative, you were portrayed as the antagonist in front of a real group of people. Imagine yourself seated like a war council member at the head of a table. A web of lies is spun with the fervor of a prosecutor arguing for your annihilation, eyes shining with malevolent intent. These folks were informed that you believe you are superior to everyone else. That your success is somehow an affront to life, that you've grown too big for your britches, and that you need someone to remind you of your position in the world. It became evident that this was not about justice, responsibility, or even a valid grievance because you were the subject of such venomous and intensely hateful speech. This was about unadulterated retaliation. The intention was to degrade you, to take away everything you had worked so hard to achieve, and to make you return broken, desperate, and ready to take whatever scraps of love you might be given. When the accomplices were gathered, let me tell you exactly what transpired in that room. Because the specifics will demonstrate how calculating and heartless the goals were. This individual appeared to be a deranged motivational speaker in front of a crowd. However, the inspiration was one of devastation rather than success. There were prepared answers to criticisms, talking points, and a selection of slides. This was no impromptu tirade sparked by a passing fit of rage. This psychological warfare was planned. In order to create credibility, the presentation began by portraying the speaker as the reasonable side who has made every effort to keep the peace with you. Your former relationship was discussed with contrived nostalgia, transforming lovely recollections into proof of your purported shortcomings. They said that you needed to be reminded of your origins and the people who helped you get there, that you had changed, and that your success had gone to your head. The presentation progressed systematically via stages intended to foster recruit consensus. The problem was first identified. You and your self-perceived superiority. Then, your icy desertion was used to portray victimhood. The solution was finally offered. A concerted attempt to lower you back into the appropriate position within a well-planned hierarchy. The fact that you had been investigated, studied, your habits and weaknesses scrutinized with the accuracy of a military commander preparing an invasion is what makes this even more terrifying. There was information about your new business endeavors, growing social network, and increasing influence in places that were inaccessible. With the fanatical determination of someone whose entire identity had gotten entangled with your demise, watching had been taking place, collecting, and documenting every facet of your development. Your achievement was portrayed as though it were a personal slight to each and every individual present, as though your wealth somehow reduced other people's capacity for happiness. Your achievements were discussed with such perverted reasoning that triumphs were presented as atrocities against humanity. You would have assumed that you were operating some sort of illegal business based on the description of your life rather than just leading an honest life and benefiting from your own diligence and spiritual alignment. When information was disclosed on schemes to deliberately damage your reputation, undermine your business connections, and set up circumstances that would compel you to return to a position of power, there was a change in the room, but it was too obscured by hatred to see. These individuals, who were believed to be manipulable, joined a crusade after being assembled, and they started to see through the appearance of virtue to the horrible reality that lay beneath it. It became apparent that they were observing someone whose preoccupation with another individual had gone beyond all reasonable bounds and into an area that caused them great discomfort. Later, someone in that room said the vibe was oppressive, like witnessing the real-time disintegration of someone's soul. Another added, feeling as though they were seeing the emergence of something genuinely wicked, something that pretended to be fair but was actually a rage of pure malevolence. Even those who first sympathized started to literally shudder at what they were hearing because the deception was so obvious and the hatred so obvious. However, the chamber was misinterpreted since it was filled with visions of your demise. Shock was seen as passion for the cause, discomfort as solidarity, and silence as agreement. With increasing enthusiasm, the speaker went on to explain how everyone could make you feel humiliated, how to coordinate efforts for the greatest possible impact, and how to guarantee that you would never recover from the planned events. There was discussion on time, accuracy, and how crucial it is to make everything appear seamless and unrelated. Instead of being the planned effort that it was, your demise was intended to seem like a string of unlucky occurrences. There were contingency plans for your possible reactions, backup plans for certain situations, and alternate strategies in case the main ones didn't work. The extent of the preparation that went into your downfall was astounding, and the consequences were horrifying. Your like spreads hope. Your comment builds community. Your subscription takes us closer to 40,000 voices. Every possible scenario had been taken into account. Every potential response was expected. All but one contingency was prepared for. The likelihood of the cosmos itself using force to step in on your behalf is so great that plans would not only fail but reverse with disastrous results for all parties. Something extraordinary occurred when the presentation came to a head and recruited assistants were given specific tasks. The initial voice wasn't one of assistance. The legality of what was being suggested was a source of concern. The second individual to speak up wasn't offering to help out. However, there were concerns raised about the ethics of attacking someone who had never really hurt anyone in that room. People were expected to join the destructive campaign one by one, and they started to express skepticism, protest, and retreat from promises that were never fulfilled. The atmosphere in the room changed from one of secretive thrill to one of mutual acknowledgement. That involvement was being sought in an activity that would jeopardize honesty and put everyone at risk of dire repercussions. However, your adversary was unable to comprehend that the grand scheme was falling apart in front of them because they were so focused on getting revenge and desperate to see you brought low. Voices rose in despair as efforts were made to salvage support from those who were already psychologically removing themselves from the whole event. Unfulfillable promises started to be made. Gave incentives that weren't owned. As phrases were spoken, images of satisfaction that sounded more and more phony were painted. They promised that pulling you down would somehow make everyone in the room better, that your humiliation would open doors for others, that your decline would bring back some sort of cosmic equilibrium, and that your success had allegedly upset the balance of the universe. However, the more desperate things got, the more the mask peeled off, exposing the underlying jealousy and hatred that drove all the proposals. It became clear to everyone in the room that this was not about fairness, justice, or giving you a lesson. This concerned the incapacity of one individual to deal with the prosperity and contentment of another. What started out as a recruitment meeting turned into a type of intervention at the end of the presentation because of the significant change in the atmosphere. Individuals weren't supporting the cause. They were trying to talk themselves out of it. True nature had been exposed to a room full of witnesses who would never again see anything but someone engulfed in unhealthy fixation rather than gaining allies. Instead of a well-thought-out attack strategy, the meeting finished with people finding reasons to avoid future interactions, making excuses to leave, and separating from someone who was suddenly seen as a possible threat, not just to you, but to anybody who came into close proximity to poisonous energy. What was supposed to be the catalyst for your demise turned into the start of your social banishment. When authorities started looking into harassment tactics, the community that was believed to be united behind the cause turned out to be the one that would eventually testify to instability. However, despite the colossal failure of group recruitment, there was no completion. The obsession with pulling you down has gotten so bad that people started pursuing more risky options. People with dubious morals, those who might be willing to breach borders that good people wouldn't, connections from darker eras, and those who behaved outside of the bounds of morality and the law were the first persons to be reached. At this point, the narrative takes an even darker turn as possibilities that went well beyond social manipulation and into areas that actually threatened your physical and financial safety were investigated. An investigation was started on how to use fabricated scandals and false complaints to undermine your company. Techniques for harming your reputation through coordinated disinformation operations and fake proof were investigated. Even more straightforward strategies were discussed, including how to set up scenarios in which you might get jailed, lose your house, become in financial distress, or have to run for assistance. The extent. of malice grew into areas that verged on criminal conspiracy, going beyond simple humiliation. Each step further into the dark was being watched, recorded, and readied for heavenly intervention. You weren't the only one shielded from plans by the cosmos. A solid case was being developed against them, one that would ultimately lead to repercussions so dire that they would serve as a warning to anyone else who may think of attacking you. Authorities looking into activities would eventually get information from the same people who were contacted for assistance with increasingly illicit intentions. People who were aware that the topics being discussed were sensitive and wished to shield themselves from any repercussions were recording what they believed to be private conversations. A desperate search for answers resulted in the disclosure of information about intents that no rational person would ever record or acknowledge. It was thought that a network of support was being established for a revenge fantasy while evidence of criminal conspiracy was being developed. The cosmos was paying attention, actively intervening, not merely listening. The grand scheme was outlined to knock you to your knees, ruin your reputation, and undermine your success. The room changed in some way. The carefully crafted facade of righteousness began to be seen through by the people who were believed to be manipulable. You were utterly ignorant of the entire scope of the growing effort against you in the meantime. With the calm assurance that comes from knowing you made the correct choice in leaving toxic relationships behind, you were going about your life, chasing your goals, and creating your future. Your emphasis on constructive creation instead of destructive obsession was producing such amazing outcomes that your would-be destroyer was reminded every day of all they had failed to accomplish in their own lives. Your company kept doing well in ways that appeared to mock forecasts of your failure. Your connections grew and expanded in ways that demonstrated how isolated people were becoming. While others' reputations fell apart due to compulsive behavior, yours strengthened. Even those who had first sympathized with you realized that their hate of you was actually a projection of their own deficiencies onto someone who had succeeded where failure had occurred because of how drastically the contrast had changed. Your development has turned into a mirror reflecting stagnation. Your happiness shines like a spotlight on your own self-inflicted suffering. Your progress is a yardstick that shows how far you've regressed. Something very amazing was taking place in your life while all of this commotion was taking place in the background. You were exercising your authority in ways that made plans appear pitifully insignificant as well as pointless. Your company was flourishing beyond anyone's wildest expectations of your success. Toxic minds could never comprehend the beneficial, sustaining, and life-giving nature of your interactions. You had a lively vitality. You had a clear goal. Additionally, your future was more promising than it had ever been. It must have been painful to watch from the sidelines as you accomplished all that was declared to be impossible. They remained imprisoned in their own jails while witnessing your achievement. They witnessed you living your life in ways they felt you didn't deserve. Your metamorphosis went beyond appearances as you dug deeper and deeper into the abyss of your own resentment and anger. It was energizing, emotional, and spiritual. Before toxicity darkened your light, you had matured into the person you were always intended to be. You had finally learned to keep your peace and respect your value without compromising, and you were radiating the kind of energy that draws possibilities, love, and abundance like a magnet. However, something was being prepared by the cosmos that would turn hatred into the very tool for total destruction. The most trusted person, the one who had been the most confident over this whole destructive campaign, was going to be exposed in ways that would render them completely helpless to deal with the fallout from their own acts. This betrayal was neither accidental nor haphazard. This was heavenly justice at work through human means, employing strategies against the offender that would guarantee full transparency and responsibility. The same individual who had fostered fixation, fueled retaliatory fantasies, and assisted in the creation of the most devastating plots was set to provide authorities with information so complete that denial would be impossible. Unknown recording devices, recorded conversations deemed private, money transactions deemed untraceable, and witness testimony never suspected of being real. It was all going to combine into a perfect storm of consequences that would make even the worst nightmares seem like beautiful dreams. When important accomplices changed their minds and refused to be involved with something so obviously malevolent, the initial plan collapsed. When those who relied on it unexpectedly found themselves in legal hot water, the backup plan fell apart. Issues that appeared suddenly, as though the universe itself were gradually dismantling support structures one by one. When the person most trusted, who was having a dirty little secret affair with the person who was meant to be the inside connection for the ultimate vengeance plot, suddenly turned into the very tool of disclosure to authorities, the third effort fell apart. They turned the traitor into the betrayed. It was the manipulator who was manipulated. It was the destroyer that was destroyed. Every action taken against you seemed to have an equal and opposite consequence, destroying their life with compound interest. They couldn't see the forces protecting you, the wisdom they couldn't access, and the power that made human petty plotting seem like toddlers flinging pebbles at a diamond mountain. God multiplies what you release. Sow $20, $50, or $100 into holy voices and trust His increase. 2 Corinthians 9 verse 10. On your way, every door tried to be shut. Several more were opened by the universe. Behind you, every bridge was tried to be torched. A route that leads to your bigger destiny is a manifestation of divine knowledge. Each weapon that was constructed against you not only missed its target, but it also bounced back with lethal accuracy, hitting the very core of their being. The universe's masterwork of divine justice was still in progress. The legal issues made a valiant effort to be produced for you. The accusations were intended to be made against you. Your life is consumed by the financial catastrophe you've always fantasized about. With such flawless accuracy, it all fell right on their doorstep, leaving onlookers speechless at the cosmic poetry that was being revealed. The very evidence that revealed criminal intent was the intended fraying job. The system that tried to use you as a weapon ended up being the cause of its own demise. The authority that ultimately held them accountable for years of toxic behavior that had gone unchecked for far too long was the law, which was tried to be exploited. Investigators began questioning you about conduct, associates, activities, and patterns of harassment and manipulation that went well beyond your fixation. What was once believed to be a personal grudge turned into a public record that exposed genuine character to both close friends and family and the wider world. The accomplices who were recruited for plots began working with the authorities more quickly than rats fleeing a sinking ship. They were all keen to avoid getting pulled into the legal maze that was quickly engulfing everyone connected to a poisonous agenda. Confidential information was used as testimony in court. The evidence they tried to fabricate against you turned out to be unquestionable evidence of their own guilt. Their own character assassination was sparked by their attempt to ruin your reputation. Their scheme to destroy your life turned into the blueprint for their own demise. On a scale they could never have envisioned in their worst imaginations, the plan to degrade you turned into the exact mechanism for their own humiliation. The moral insight and clarity with which the community surrounding you both responded to the hate campaign restored hope in humanity's capacity to distinguish truth when it is presented alongside lies. Those who truly know you were able to spot dishonesty right away. Those who were truly honest declined to be involved in schemes. Despite efforts to turn them against you, the ones who truly had character remained by your side. Because healthy people naturally detect toxicity when they come into contact with it, the community rejected poison. People who are balanced don't participate in destructive campaigns against those who have never done them any harm. Adults with emotional maturity don't engage in complex plots to degrade someone whose sole transgression was leaving a relationship that was slowly killing them. I have to cut this transmission short for a second. Have you been selected? Show it. Watching videos regarding selected ones is simple. Putting yourself to the test is a quite different matter. One thing became evident to me when I faced the archons outside of our world. Very few people are truly chosen. The idea of us running into each other made them laugh. You are viewing this message, nevertheless. Not everyone who claims to have been awakened is a candidate for the obsidian inner order. The real ones are us. The unmistakable frequency is carried by those who have glimpsed past the curtain and sensed the call. Are you really one of us, though? I've given you everything I have, and I'm going above and beyond to give you even more. Don't only watch content from a distance. Actual picked ones. Do something. Join our weekly group call to share your story. Our resident card reader can provide you with an insightful tarot reading. Find out if your experiences match the real indicators. Recognizing one another is the greatest fear of the archons. Our frequencies intensify and produce a force when we join. They are unable to halt. To find every last one of us, we will be broadcasting live to the whole Astral Atom Network. In the description below, click the link. It's time to quit speculating and validate your suspicions. Are you only interested in waking up, or are you really chosen? Show it by coming with us. The Obsidian Inner Order has the confirmation you're looking for. In the end, even those who at first listened to grievances with some sympathy became weary of compulsive hostility. It was realized that someone who devotes so much time, effort, and emotional involvement to ruining another person's life has significant psychological problems that extend well beyond the conflict that was purportedly being resolved. The people who really matter, those with moral character, discernment, and true love in their hearts, did not simply watch you suffer. People actively came together to support your cause, acting as your advocates, witnesses, and protectors in ways that made your existence encircled by an unbreakable circle of light that the dark could never penetrate. Something unusual started to occur as legal issues grew and social isolation grew, as plans fell apart and reputations were destroyed, and this story was transformed from a personal drama to a cosmic display of heavenly power. With a vengeance that left them completely helpless, the person they trusted the most, the one having the covert affair with the person who knew all plans, all strategies, and all dirty secrets, turned against them. This was no haphazard treachery. This was no accident. In order to guarantee their full and complete exposure, this was heavenly justice acting through human tools and employing deceptive weapons against them. The exact person who you believed would help destroy you ended up being the one responsible for your demise, exposing not only plans but whole patterns of abuse, manipulation, and poisonous conduct that spanned years of relationships. Suddenly, the authorities who had been looking into the activities had access to evidence that they could not have gotten through traditional channels. Financial transactions, tape chats, text messages, and phone records. Everything that was believed to be concealed was abruptly exposed for scrutiny by those in positions of authority to guarantee that actions had repercussions. However, the realization that this whole experience was never actually about them at all is what, when taken as a whole, makes this story genuinely sublime. Simply the tool that the universe employed to make clear something you might have overlooked while navigating life's obstacles. You're not like the others. You're not your typical self. You are not a person who is easily defeated, demoralized, or successfully sabotaged by the plots of resentful individuals who are motivated by spiritual darkness. You have been selected. You're safe. Intelligence that sees the end from the beginning is what guides you. There are forces beyond human comprehension that love you. Forces that shift the earth and heavens to guarantee your eventual triumph. You are a light that the dark cannot take away. Purpose that hatred cannot thwart or destroy, and power that plans cannot undermine. Even though you were unable to completely grasp your special nature, the fact that such elaborate and remarkable lengths were taken in an attempt to bring you down is proof of that. Ordinary people are not the targets of intricate, multi-layered plans of annihilation. People who don't symbolize something important or a threat to fictitious notions of superiority aren't the targets of plots by groups. Your genuineness jeopardized meticulously crafted facades. Your development brought intentional stagnation to light. Your triumph revealed countless justifications. The depth of your self-inflicted anguish was shown by your enjoyment. In ways that were impossible to ignore or justify, your light made darkness evident to both themselves and other people. However, this had nothing to do with them. Simply the impetus the universe employed to help you realize your own strength, defense, and divine calling. Your strength was exposed with each attack you unleashed. Every plan you came up with became an example of your defense. Each weapon you created served as proof of your chosen status. Consider the scope of the triumph won, not just for you, but through you, as this cosmic drama comes to a head. It wasn't only about thwarting schemes or revealing personalities. This had to do with the universe itself announcing that you were protected in a way that allowed no space for question or disagreement. Every weapon that was created against you did more than simply miss its mark. With compound interest and terrible accuracy, it turned back. Instead, they were captured in the repercussions of their own actions by every trap placed with your name on it. Under the weight of their own anger, every pit dug in the hopes of seeing you fall turned into their own cemetery, burying their future, connections, and reputation. However, their stunning downfall was not the true victory, the ultimate triumph. It was your quick ascent. You were being raised to heights they could never achieve while they were preoccupied with dragging you down. You walked in light that became brighter every day as you plodded in the dark. You operated from love, which amplified everything positive in your life, while you lived in hatred, which rotted souls. This is your tale. This is your triumph. You are vindicated by this. More than anything else, though, this is your way of telling the world that you are not to be taken lightly. The plans of the spiritually bankrupt cannot obscure the brightness of this person. Not someone whose fate might be ruined by envy of those who have opted for darkness rather than progress. You didn't simply make it through the destructive campaign. You went beyond it entirely. You didn't just get out of the complex trap. It served as a springboard for accomplishments that far outstripped your prior accomplishments. You didn't simply defeat well-organized resistance. You turned it into the cornerstone of a testimonial that will encourage other chosen people to acknowledge their own strength and defense. The spiritual distance you've traveled prevents the person who formerly sapped your vitality from reaching you. When you have learned to get value from an unquestionable source, the person who once made you doubt your value can no longer fool you. A person who has fully embraced their heavenly vocation can no longer be constrained by the connection that earlier prevented them from moving forward. You're at liberty. You're safe. You have been selected. And you have won, completely, utterly, irrevocably. The universe used their attempt to degrade you as a chance to elevate you. Their plot to destroy you turned into heaven's opportunity to show that nothing that the supernatural has blessed can be cursed by human scheme. Their well-planned assault served as the backdrop for your most memorable comeback. The circle is finished. We've won. Together, we can reach 40,000 subscribers. Every like, every share, every comment moves us forward. The lesson has been learned, and your future, oh, chosen one, is more promising, stronger, and safer than it has ever been. Even your opponents must acknowledge the hand of protection over your life since you are so obviously the object of divine favor. The fact that your defense was planned on several levels at once is even more amazing than this celestial validation. Opportunities that seemed to come out of nowhere, connections that appeared at the right times, and doors that opened just when you needed them most were all examples of subtler interventions taking place while the obvious schemes were falling apart in spectacular fashion. The same heavenly intellect that was destroying the campaign against you was responsible for all of this. Certain circumstances, individuals, and opportunities that would have placed you squarely in the line of their sabotage attempts have been avoided by following your instincts. You nearly went to the business meeting, but it was abruptly canceled. You choose not to attend that social gathering since something didn't feel right. That investment opportunity that, although it appeared ideal on paper, you passed up. Each of these served as your spiritual radar system, keeping you safe from unnoticed traps. You were able to spot patterns that others overlooked because of your superior perspective. The way some discussions would change when particular subjects were raised. The way people who know you would feel awkward if they were asked about your life. The way invitations to some events would inexplicably not get through to you. These were all signs that the cosmos was protecting you from malevolent intent. When criminal activity was eventually discovered, even the legal system reacted with remarkable efficiency. Normally time-consuming investigations proceeded quite quickly. Evidence that would often be hard to come by appeared to be easily accessible. Some witnesses who may have kept quiet found the strength to speak out. The legal system functioned as though it were led by unseen hands, guaranteeing prompt responsibility. It wasn't a coincidence that you developed spiritually during this time. It was getting ready. Every revelation that expanded your grasp of your true nature, every meditation that provided clarity, and every inner calm that fortified your resolve were all contributing to the construction of the unbreakable foundation that would make you impervious to future attacks. You were being shielded from the outside and strengthened from the inside. Sensitive people could sense the difference between your energy field and theirs the moment they stepped into your presence because it was so stark. While toxic energy exuded confusion and despair, you exuded calm assurance. While anyone with discernment was being repelled, you drew in followers and collaborators. While suspicions about goals and motives were being raised, you fostered trust. Where reputation is most important, your name became a byword for honesty. Your professional networks welcomed you more. Collaborations on creative projects came more easily. As though the universe were proving that people who live from love and authenticity are supported materially in proportion to their spiritual harmony, financial prosperity grew. In the meantime, the legal ramifications kept growing in ways that guaranteed full responsibility for years of destructive conduct. An investigation into harassment turned into a study of more general abuse and manipulative behaviors. Some victims have the guts to come forward. All of a sudden, previously disregarded or concealed situations were being re-examined from a new angle. The one who betrayed them and exposed all the plans and machinations did it not out of malice, but rather because they realized that keeping quiet would imply their complicity in something that had gotten well beyond reasonable bounds. In actuality, this treachery was a moral decision. Someone who at last chooses truth over devotion to toxicity, right over wrong. Other chosen ones who had suffered similar assaults on their achievement, their character, or their fundamental right to live a genuine life in the world found solace in your narrative. You became living evidence, without even trying, that justice is served, that divine protection is genuine, and that love finally triumphs over hate in ways that make it clear which power is in charge of the universe. For someone who operates with the sincerity you possess, who carries the light you carry, who embodies the love you represent to a world that is aching for truth, this is just the beginning of what the universe has in store for them. The cosmos had already created your beginning, but an effort was made to write your ending. Beloved soul, if this message has spoken to your heart, don't let it end here. Click that like button so the light can spread to more people who need hope. Subscribe to Holy Voices so you never miss the next word heaven has for you. And leave a comment below. I read every one, and I pray over them. Remember, faith grows when we share it, so share this message with someone who needs to hear it today. Until we meet again, may God's peace cover you and His voice guide your every step.